Our next speaker is Nupur Gulati. Nupur is a Duke alum who spent 2 years being a doula and teaching high school in the Bronx before joining Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. She's interested in medicine, specifically through the lens of global health and education equity. Much of her deep dive thinking for the past 5 years has consisted of processes for responsible and sustainable ways to impact underserved international communities. At Robert Wood Johnson, Nupur is involved with the Hip Hop Promise Clinic operations team and is a Chancellor's Global Health Scholar. Her current research consists of community health and education interventions for latent tuberculosis infection in the New Jersey South Asian population. Nupur is grateful for this opportunity to further develop her voice and wants to thank all of you for being part of her journey. Please help me welcome Nupur.
According to the CDC, social determinants of health are the structural determinants and conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. In medicine, we often talk about these social determinants of health because we all seem to acknowledge, at least on some level, that they are important in the health of our patients and in building efficient health systems. We like to silo them into these neatly defined categories, and of course, we acknowledge that there is some overlap between determinants. For instance, socio and economic go together. Socio and political go together. You get the idea. But for the most part, in practice, we like to think of them as these neatly defined categories that we can put together to create additive pictures of our patients. The picture above is from Mohuru Bay, Kenya. It's a tiny rural fishing village off the coast of Lake Victoria, right on the border of Kenya and Uganda. 6 years ago, I took a plane, train, matatu, or van, and piki or motorcycle to get there. So if you plan on visiting, make sure to travel with only what you can carry on your back and set aside a little over 48 hours to get there. Mohuru Bay is home to about 7,000 Kenyans, and its small economy is supported primarily by fish from Lake Victoria. The children love to play football, the no-hands version, of course. The primary religion is Christianity, and most everyone loves going to church. People stop and smile at you in the street and ask you how your day is going and how you're feeling. Kenya is home to over 40 distinct tribes, each with their own unique customs and languages. The people of Mohuru Bay belong to the Luo tribe. Oyaore muzungu achionade was something I would hear often on my morning walks, meaning, "Good morning, foreigner, how are you?" To which I would respond, "Erokamano maber achionade, I'm fine, thank you, and you?" Mohuru Bay's people were some of the kindest and most generous people I've ever had the good fortune to meet. And Mohuru Bay truly is one of the most beautiful places on earth. It was heaven. But heaven and hell are just opposite sides of the same coin. For all its beauty, Mohuru Bay was a truly hellish place to live. Mohuru Bay is located in the Nyanza province of Kenya, one of the poorest and most politically unstable regions. 1 out of 3 people lived with HIV, and of that 33%, half had full-blown AIDS. Malaria and typhoid were so rampant that 1 out of 2 infants didn't make it to their first birthday. There was no clean drinking water, no plumbing, little nutritious food because few crops grew in the arid soil. Most homes were made out of mud and straw, which did little to keep disease vectors like mosquitoes out. There was no medicine, no prenatal care, no vaccines. There was no hospital. The nearest hospital was in the small town of Migori, 3 hours away on an unpaved road that was quite literally more potholes than road. Only a piki or motorcycle could travel on it because any four-wheeler would get stuck going more than 5 miles an hour. And even then, you just ended up walking the bike over the really big potholes. It was not uncommon for women in labor experiencing complications to die en route to the hospital. My official project in Mohuru Bay was to explore the social determinants of international women's health. More specifically, my team and I wanted to understand if and how lack of access to sanitary pads impacted the health outcomes of girls and women in the area. I worked under the umbrella organization called WISER, which stands for the Women's Institute for Secondary Education and Research. It was founded 10 years ago by Duke Global Health professor and my fierce and fearless longtime mentor, Dr. Cheryl Broverman. WISER is fundamentally a quality boarding high school for local girls. Once the girls are in, they're taken care of completely. Once they're in, they need only be learners. But what makes Wiser really unique isn't just its focus on its girls. It's its focus on sustainable and long-term community empowerment through the empowerment of its girls. Wiser's motto was to live, learn, and be, because it strove to impact all aspects of individual and community life. All right, so I guess this begs the question, right? Why should we care about girls? Girls living in poverty continue to be the largest marginalized group worldwide. According to UNESCO's March 2016 World Report for East Africa, for all children living in poverty between the ages of 6 and 12, 3 girls do not attend school for every 1 boy. That ratio further diverges when you look at East Asia, Southeast Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. That's 50% of the Earth's human potential wasted. And girls were definitely the most marginalized group in Mohuru Bay. Traditional beliefs outlined in stone what girls could and could not do. The thought was that boys and girls started out the same, but then over time, girls began to lose interest in school and began staying home because their smaller, lesser minds just couldn't keep up with the boys. This divergent downhill process all began when a girl turned 12 years old. They called it the disease of the uterus. By the traditional view, there was nothing more disgusting than a menstruating girl. A menstruating girl was told that she should stay home because she was filthy, unworthy of an education because she was deemed too unintelligent for one. Girls had no access to a sanitary way to manage their menstruation. So, starting at age 12, they began their retreat into their homes. I interviewed over 200 girls between the ages of 7 and 17, and I saw this traditional view come to life before my eyes. The younger girls were spunky, mischievous, had opinions they wanted to express, and were generally pretty excited about school. The older ones were more reserved, hiding their nervous smiles in their hands, lowering their eyes in shame when I asked them about their menstruation and what it was like for them to manage their flow. Many of the older girls had already given up on school. Many of them already had babies and husbands and diseases that kept them from school. But what broke my heart the most was the girls who had tried to fight and had failed. I'll never forget Mabel. She was sitting on the bench next to me, nervously fidgeting with her hands as I asked her about her situation. She told me that she had really wanted to go to school, but that her father would not pay her school fees. She consistently earned better grades than either of her 2 younger brothers, but he would only pay for them to go to school and not her because she was a girl. But she wanted to go to school. So she decided that she was going to earn her school fees a different way. She had transactional sex with a fisherman so that he would pay her school fees and buy her sanitary pads so that she didn't have to miss school on days that she menstruated. Let that sink in for a second. A child trading sex for school fees and sanitary pads. Well, this worked well for a few months, but when I interviewed her, Mabel was 15 years old, 6 months pregnant, and HIV positive. She had since given up on her dreams for an education and was just focused on daily survival. All right, so let's just explore a world of difference and opportunity here for a second. I was raised by the 2 most incredible feminist parents who taught me that my identity as a man, woman, or anyone or anything else didn't define me, and it certainly didn't limit me. At age 12, Mabel was engaging in dangerous and desperate behaviors just to stay in school another day with the boys. At age 12, I was being raised with the belief that if I stayed in school and brought my A game every day, I wouldn't just be able to compete with the boys, I'd be able to beat them. In the words of Gloria Steinem, another fierce and fearless woman, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off." It was this anger that had fueled Cheryl to start Wiser in Mohuru Bay, to give girls like Mabel an option, to not have to choose between an education and prostitution. Wiser's been around for a decade, improving the lives of its community by improving the lives of its girls. But perhaps what makes Wiser really unique is the ideology that supports it. The Girl Effect is an international development model that focuses on protecting and investing in the girl child living in poverty. The idea is that the way to break the cycle of poverty is to invest in the most marginalized group and to teach that group how to invest in themselves. Girls who attend the Weiser School in Mohuru Bay are taught both a curriculum that will allow them to compete on a global level and one that would allow them to thrive in their local community. They're taught French and calculus alongside how to grow local medicinal plants and how to set up small businesses. The idea is that they will be inspired not only to learn, but to be inspired by where they come from, to be proud of where they come from, so that they will stay in their local community and inspire and uplift others. Perhaps the most important component of the Girl Effect is that it employs an asset-based approach to community development. Put simply, asset-based thinking just means that when you work in a community, especially an international community, you are not a savior. It's a belief that the community and its people already have the necessary ingredients for development, for progress. Marcy was top of her 9th grade class at Weiser. She graduated 2 years ago and now attends University in Nairobi, where she studies engineering. She intends to come back to Weiser in a few years to help another local nonprofit build up the infrastructure of the area. She's going to be the reason less women in labor die en route to the hospital. Okay, so my sister's going to culinary school this year, which is like truly remarkable considering we grew up in the same household and I currently burn water. You laugh, but it's true. So something I've learned from her is that you can't make tomato soup from avocados. You need tomatoes. Odd metaphor? Maybe. Okay, definitely, but hear me out for a second. So what does a chef do? A chef puts together ingredients using a recipe that works for those specific ingredients. And while it may look like those ingredients have been transformed, the ability to be transformed is inherent to those specific ingredients. So you can't make tomato soup from avocados because it doesn't work for that ingredient. However, avocados are really well suited for a mean guacamole. For all of us millennials in the room, avocados make some awesome avocado toast, am I right? Yeah. The point is that it's all about the ingredients. And it's about acknowledging that the end result isn't better or worse than another. I, for one, like my tomato soup with some avocado toast on the side. So as per the Girl Effect, the most important ingredient to international level change is the girl child living in poverty. If given the right resources and put under the right conditions, she can transform both herself and her community. 50 million girls worldwide live in poverty. That equals 50 million solutions for a brighter future for our world's communities. The Girl Effect is an effect that starts with a 12-year-old girl and impacts the world. I've been sold on this idea that the Girl Effect is a powerful approach to international level change. But after seeing it work on a domestic level as well, I'm suspicious that it must have a deeper meaning. After working with Weiser in Mohuru Bay, I began working with an education equity nonprofit in New York City. I had learned how health specifically was important in community change, but I wanted to understand how specifically education plays a role in that as well. So I did what all curious learners do after college. I went back to high school, just as a teacher this time. I believe that if you're willing to learn, anyone and everyone can teach you something. And there are no bad people, only bad situations and really bad days. My student Tia was having a really rough time. She would get in fights with other students, damage school property, and even curse at teachers. Most of the other teachers didn't want her in their classrooms because she was disruptive to the learning environment. So unfortunately, Tia spent a lot of time out of the classroom and in detention. I learned from a counselor that Tia was one of 4 children being raised by a single mother who did what she could to support her kids. But at the time, Tia was being bounced from family to family in foster care while her mother did jail time for dealing drugs. One day, while Tia was serving detention with me, amid grumbles of not understanding why she had to be there, Tia let slip that she loved to dance. So we began talking about who her favorite dancers were and what kind of dance she was interested in. I remember asking her why she loved to dance, and she told me it was the one thing that she did that made her feel like she was in control of her life, made her feel free. So we began eating lunch together for the next few months, and I learned that she really wanted to go to dance school downtown, but there was no way she was going to be able to afford it. I used to do individual plan, act, and achieve meetings with each of my students, during which we would sit down together and set a goal. Didn't necessarily have to be academic. And then develop a plan of attitudes and actions needed to achieve that goal. And I'd always tell them that, well, there was such a thing as an outrageous plan, and believe me, I saw a ton. There was no such thing as an outrageous goal. So Tia and I sat down together, and we set her goal as wanting to get into dance school, and began developing her plan of actions and attitudes of how she was going to do that. She began by calling the director of the dance school. She called, emailed, sent snail mail, showed up twice in person, waiting several hours each time with no luck. Then one day, out of the blue, she received a call from the director. The director was really impressed by her energy, spirit, and above all, persistence. After a short audition, they agreed that Tia could help teach a beginner-level class in exchange for her own lessons. Tia had accomplished her immediate goal, but she didn't stop there. She went on to start a dance team at the school. She would choreograph for her peers, and a couple of her friends even started attending the dance school with her under the same sort of agreement with the director. It was inspiring to watch my student inspire those around her. She changed the course of her life in a domino effect of good that impacted her community, and she did that herself. To me, Tia is a living, breathing model of the girl effect in a domestic community. Like Mabel and Marcy, Tia already had the necessary ingredients for change inherently within herself. All she needed was an opportunity to experience her own potential. So perhaps the girl effect isn't just this esoteric philosophy for international level change. Maybe it's more fundamental than that. Maybe it's a way to see the world and interact with others, a process through which to melt together the silos of social determinants of health and construct pictures of our patients that aren't additive, but rather holistic and truly empathetic. A way to achieve activism and humanism in medicine and in life. A reminder to believe in the intents and abilities of others and to try to understand their unique stories. To see people as individuals and as integral and wholesome to the fabric of their communities. To hold their hands with invisible hands that take no ownership for their progress or change. To be open to self-change. To live, to learn, and to be. Thank you.